So I figured I'd make this video about ranking Christopher Nolan's films, just because he's one of my current favorite living filmmakers, and I've finally gotten the chance to see all of his films multiple times now. So I feel like because his films do demand a lot of viewings to fully appreciate them and understand them. Uh, Even to this point, though, I still don't understand a lot of his films completely, but I feel like I've watched them enough now where I have a good idea and a good sense of where I would place them if I were ranking his films. And I don't own all of his films yet, so some of them I'm going to be talking about I don't actually have yet, but I'm going to be getting most of them on Blu-ray. I have a few already. So basically what we'll do is I'll start from the bottom and go all the way up to the top. So my favorite, going from the from the bottom to number one, and we'll see. I'll kind of talk about them as well as I'm going through them and just my overall opinion of them. I'm not going to go into a really in-depth review of each film. That would just take too long, but I'll just kind of give my general impressions and overall thoughts of each film. So Christopher Nolan's been making films now for the better part of over a decade. He started off with a low-budget, small independent film called Following. I don't own that film, nor have I seen that film, actually. That's the only one of his movies that I haven't seen. But since it's kind of like an independent, smaller film, it was kind of before he actually got any real funding for movies. I will eventually end up seeing it, I just haven't yet. So I'm going to start off with his first actual studio film, which came out in the year 2000, so he started off right at the beginning of the decade, and that is Memento. And I recently got this on Blu-ray. Came out in the year 2000, starring Guy Pearce and Carrie-Anne Moss and Joe Pantoliano. And for those of you who haven't seen this movie, I'll just kind of give you here's like what the inside of the Blu-ray looks like. And the cover is really awesome. I actually really like this cover just because it has the nice photo of Leonard himself, because if you've seen this movie, you know he likes to take pictures, or he has to take pictures. So if you haven't seen this and you're a Christopher Nolan fan, first of all, definitely check it out, because this is raw Christopher Nolan. This is before the Batman movies, before Inception, before he started getting into these high-budget action epic movies that he's making. He made a small, film that really concentrates on like three characters. There's three main characters in this film. Leonard, played by Guy Pearce, Carrie-Anne Moss, I can't remember her character's name, and then Joey Pants, who plays Teddy, who is a local cop. And basically, if you haven't seen this, I'll just kind of give you a brief overview. The film deals with the main character, Guy Pearce's character. He suffers from short-term memory loss, or retrograde memory loss, in that he cannot create new memories. So he remembers everything in his life up to a certain point when he had this accident. But then since that accident, he can't create any new memories ever. So he constantly has to take pictures of everybody he meets, write down little notes about each person, so that he knows who anybody is, because he doesn't know who anybody is, because his memory only lasts for like 5 seconds. And the film is really, really interesting because it's told backwards, and there's actually it's cool because the film is told from the perspective of starting at the end and going towards the beginning, and then there's another part of the movie that's starting at the beginning and going towards the end. So eventually the two meet up in the middle. It's a really great way to tell the story, because we're in the same situation then as the main character, because we're suffering from short-term memory loss because we're starting off at the end and going towards the beginning. Everything's all mixed up. You're kind of having to follow along. You essentially become like the main character because you're trying to remember what happened in the last scene, which is actually forward in time, if that makes any sense. So it's a mystery thriller, psychological thriller. It's a genre that Christopher Nolan is great in, and it really it has a lot of his characteristics. A lot of his characters are very, very similar. I'll just talk a little bit about most of the main characters in Christopher Nolan's movies suffering from some kind of a psychological problem, be it he has short-term memory loss. In the Batman movies, Batman obviously has a dual personality. And then also in Insomnia, the main character, the police officer, is suffering from, well, insomnia. And so there's that, but there's also the fact that he's looking for revenge for the killing of his wife. And that's a really similar theme in all of Christopher Nolan's movies. The Prestige, obviously, Inception, obviously, and the Batman movies. He's looking for, Batman's not necessarily looking for revenge, but Two-Faces in The Dark Knight. So that's a common theme throughout all of Christopher Nolan's movies. Also, just the main character, just the psychological and the emotional effects on a person from obsession, which essentially becomes their lives. That's a common theme throughout all of Christopher Nolan's movies. Anyway, so this was the first movie that he came out with in the year 2000. Now, I'm just going to go in order of the year they came out, and then I'm going to give the final order of where I would rank them. So this was his first movie. His next movie, which I don't have with me, was Insomnia in 2002, and that was starring Al Pacino and Robin Williams and Hilary Swank. Insomnia, just looking at the film, the first time I saw it, I think I went in expecting a little too much because I had already seen Memento, and I had seen the Batman movies and The Prestige. Insomnia was really the last Christopher Nolan movie that I saw. I was expecting a lot from it. Going into it, though, if you don't expect it to be this, it's not really a mind-bending type movie. It's a police procedural with just 3 amazing performances at the center of it. But what makes it stand out, and kind of go beyond the genre of a police procedural, is the fact that the main character is suffering from insomnia. And also, you get a great relationship between Robin Williams, who's playing the villain in the film, and Al Pacino, who's playing the cop, because the two men are really similar, and they're mirror images of each other. And, it's just fascinating to watch the interplay between the two of them. That's the strength of that film. Hilary Swank, she's kind of wasted in that film, which it's a shame because she's a great actress, but she just wasn't given a lot to do in that film, and it's really unfortunate because she is a great actress. Now going into his next film, which was in 2005, and this was his first really big budget movie, which was Batman Begins. I don't have that with me right now. I ordered the whole Batman trilogy on Blu-ray, so I'm just waiting for that. But Batman Begins was really Christopher Nolan's first big budget movie, and it was amazing that Warner Brothers took a chance on him because, had that film been given to a other filmmaker, it would have really, it could have been catastrophe because we had just had Batman and Robin, and fans were just up in arms about how terrible that film was and how it nearly destroyed the Batman franchise. And Christopher Nolan came in and he rescued it essentially. And Batman Begins, it was a great realistic portrayal of Batman, attempting to ground the character in reality and also hearkening back to, it felt like Blade Runner as I was watching the film because it has a dark atmosphere. It's always overcast and raining. It's a different kind of Gotham, even darker than Tim Burton's Gotham. But anyway, so just, that film, while it was his first big budget movie, and a lot of directors, when they go into the big budget movies, they tend to, compromise on their artistic integrity. But Christopher Nolan did not do that. Christopher Nolan took what worked best for him in Memento and Insomnia, which was, number one, in Memento, it's a non-linear story, and Batman Begins, the first half of it is actually non-linear. It jumps back and forth between Bruce Wayne's time while he's a child, and then while he's kind of in his late teens, and then kind of going back to when he's an adult in prison. So Christopher Nolan kept that aspect of storytelling, which he really likes, the non-linear storytelling, and he also brought in, a bit of a police procedural in that Batman, it's a detective story. And Batman, at its core, he is the world's greatest detective. And Christopher Nolan finally captured that, which no other filmmakers had done, which was Batman is the world's greatest detective. He really is. And he has to solve things. And in each of the Batman movies that he did, all three of them, there was a detective story at its core, Batman trying to figure out something. The other films didn't really have that. They didn't get that. They spent too much time focusing on the villains and not enough on Batman. Batman is a very interesting character, if not more interesting than almost all of the villains in the universe. So Christopher Nolan focused on Batman with Batman Begins and the other, to a lesser extent, the other two films, but he still did. And he brought this gritty, realistic portrayal that nobody had ever seen before. I remember when it first came out and I was convincing everybody, you gotta see it. You gotta see what they did with Batman. And everybody's like, no, Batman, if it's anything like the other movies, I'm not gonna want to see it. And I was like, no, trust me, it's nothing like the other films. And your word of mouth was amazing on it. It didn't do as well at the box office as the other two Batman movies, but that was because people were still cautious about Batman because of the bad taste that the last movies left in everybody's mouth. So, Batman Begins was Christopher Nolan's really first big budget epic action movie. And then he decided to make a very interesting but ultimately great career move in going back to doing a small, low budget film in The Prestige. And I actually have that film on Blu-ray. Check it out on Blu-ray if you haven't seen it. It looks, I to this day think that this is Christopher Nolan's best looking movie. Just the cinematography of it is amazing to look at. And what Wally Pfister, his DP, was able to do, just with the palette and with the low-key lighting scenes, it looks awesome on Blu-ray, especially all the scenes that involve the transportation machines that the two main characters have. So anyway, a lot of people may not have seen this Christopher Nolan movie when it first came out, because at that point he wasn't really a household name yet. He had Batman Begins, but people did not necessarily associate Christopher Nolan with Batman at that point. So this movie didn't do as well at the box office, which was unfortunate because it's a great portrayal of Christopher Nolan's main theme in all of his films, which is obsession and the effects of it on everybody in this film. The two main characters, Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale, are competing wizards, and they're trying to constantly one-up each other, essentially. There's a terrible tragedy. I'm not going to spoil anything, but there's a terrible tragedy that happens to Hugh Jackman's character, and he takes it personally, and he wants to get revenge on Christian Bale's character by stealing his magic trick. And so they're constantly trying to one-up each other, who's the better magician, and then ultimately their obsessions lead them, down some really bad, to some dark places. And at the center of it is Scarlett Johansson's character. She actually does a pretty good job. People give her a bad rap for this film, and I honestly felt like she did a great job with what she had to do in this film, which was essentially act as the love interest of both of the characters, and at the same time, she had to put on a facade to, gain each of the two magicians' trusts. And Michael Caine is in this as well. Michael Caine played Alfred in the Batman movies. Michael Caine is awesome in this movie. He plays like the moral compass of the movie, essentially. And it's a great role because it's nothing like Alfred, actually. It's a really different type of character. And it's got most of Christopher Nolan's typical actors in Christian Bale and Michael Caine. But Hugh Jackman also gives a really great performance. I still think this is Hugh Jackman's best performance ever in any film I've ever seen. It was a shame that this movie was not nominated at the Oscars for Best Picture, Best Director. You could argue both of these men deserved a Best Actor nomination because every time I watch this film, I discover new things about it. It's definitely Christopher Nolan's most non-linear story, in that the first time I watched this, I could not tell where and when I was within this timeline. But with Memento, you kind of got it after the first couple scenes. Okay, they're going to be going backwards in time, and then there's going to be a track that's going forwards in time. With this movie, There's no rules at all. It jumps back and forth between, essentially, the two main characters are reading each other's diaries. So it jumps back and forth between each perspective in the diaries, while at the same time going back to the present day. So it's a really great film in that it demands multiple viewings. I, to this day, have a lot of theories on what this film means, what the ending of it implies, because the ending is great. It has a couple twists. I'm not going to spoil anything, but I still have a lot of different theories on this film. And if anybody has any of their own theories on it, feel free to post them in the comments section below, because this film is, without a doubt, one of the most complex, intricate films I've ever seen. And I highly recommend this if you haven't seen it yet. Get it on Blu-ray because the picture is amazing. It is Christopher Nolan's best looking film, without a doubt. And it's just a great drama, and a psychological thriller at that. So after The Prestige, Christopher Nolan didn't even know if he was going to be making another Batman movie, because he didn't know if Batman Begins was going to be good or not, how people were going to respond to that type of a portrayal of the Dark Knight. And so after he was greenlit, he made the sequel. And this is Christopher Nolan's best known movie. I haven't met anybody yet that hasn't seen it. And that, of course, is The Dark Knight. I actually have this film on DVD. I'm waiting for the Blu-rays. The Dark Knight, came out in 2008, and it was Heath Ledger's last movie. He passed away during the post-production. And I think that really was what pushed this film over the edge in terms of giving it a huge box office. It was the second highest domestic, at its time, it was the second highest domestic box office ever, made over $1 billion worldwide. It was a huge movie when it came out. Everybody saw it. I saw it 3 times in the theaters myself, just because the impact of this film that it had on me and on a lot of people at the time was great, because it was really the first movie about terrorism and what you do in the face of a evil that does not compromise, like terrorists, for example. So I think it struck a chord with a lot of people, and it's a great crime drama. It's definitely like a crime gangster type movie, while at the same time a superhero movie, while at the same time it's also, Christopher Nolan's typical psychological thriller. And he combines all these different genres to make a really great movie. And basically, this film, the main theme of the film is escalation. And the film acts that out. The great thing about every single Christopher Nolan film is he takes the theme of the film and he somehow makes the story and the narrative portray that theme. Like in Memento, the main character suffers from short-term memory loss. So the film's narrative is set up like you have short-term memory loss. Same thing with Insomnia. The main character has insomnia. The film is set up where you the film is set up with the narrative in that it's very foggy, it's blurry, kind of the effects of insomnia. Quick editing because the person's kind of he's kind of disoriented. And then the same thing with this film. This film takes the theme of escalation and makes that part of the narrative, in that it keeps going and building and building. It's a constant climax. This film has you on the edge of your seat the entire time because it is a constant climax. And that was one of the critiques of the film, in fact, from a number of critics, was that it never slows down. Well, that's the point. It's not supposed to slow down because it is an escalation. It's in constant climax until the very end. And you could argue that it never does really... It doesn't have necessarily an ending to the film, because the ending leaves a lot of characters' fates open to interpretation, and also it leaves Batman's role open to interpretation as well, because Christopher Nolan thought this might be his last Batman movie as well. He kind of did, but then he went back and he did the third movie. But if this just ended on like this, I would have been fine with that. Do I like The Dark Knight Rises? Yes, of course I do. But this film, if you just ended the Batman series right here with this film, I would have had no problem with that, because the ending is great. And I'll go ahead and spoil this because I'm pretty sure everybody has seen this film. The Joker is apprehended. He's not killed. Two-Face, you don't really know if he was killed or not at the end of this movie. A lot of people said that he was. A lot of people said he wasn't. So just having seen this film with no knowledge of Dark Knight Rises, pretend that didn't happen. You wouldn't know what happened with him. And that's the great thing about the ending of this film, is that it really gets at the heart of what Batman is fighting for and what Batman represents. Batman represents just true justice. And he believes in the goodness of all people, why he won't kill anybody, and also at the end of the film why he has so much faith that those people on the two boats aren't going to blow each other up. Well, the Joker believes they will, because the Joker deep down believes everybody is as evil as he is. Everybody will, compromise and break if under enough pressure, but Batman won't. And that's why these two characters, it's a philosophical battle that the Joker and Batman are fighting, even though it's played out in action and gunfire and things like that. But at its heart, it's a philosophical battle that they both are dark images of each other. Neither man will compromise. Neither man will break. Neither man will bend their own twisted rules. Even though the Joker says he doesn't have any rules, well, that kind of is a rule, that you don't have any rules. And the Batman, obviously, he won't ever kill anybody, including the Joker. And they both need each other almost, because the Joker even says in the film, like, to Batman, "You complete me." They do complete each other, because every yin is a yang, every up has a down. That's their relationship. And I like this cover too at the back, how you just see the Batman and Joker in the interrogation room, which is one of the best scenes in any Christopher Nolan film, is the interrogation scene between Batman and Joker, because really that gets at the heart of their philosophical conflict that they have with each other. And then he's on the Bat Pod, which is a really cool cover as well. There's not much more that can be said about this movie. It's, without a doubt, will always remain Christopher Nolan's most popular film, unless he comes out with something that's bigger than Batman. I don't know what is in terms of the popular culture. And this film, also, there's a really underrated performance by Aaron Eckhart, who plays Harvey Dent, Two-Face. That's a great performance, and it was unfortunately overlooked by Heath Ledger's Oscar-winning performance, which, how can you not focus on that? It was such an amazing performance. But at the same time, Aaron Eckhart's performance as Two-Face was really underrated. I loved his portrayal of the character and how they made him a tragic hero, because Two-Face is a tragic hero, or a tragic villain, rather, because he loses his wife, he loses his sanity, and he essentially, just becomes, sometimes he's a really good guy, and sometimes he's not so good. Like I said, I don't think Christopher Nolan's ever going to make a film more popular than this one. Definitely will never make one that made as much money as this one did. But popularity isn't everything. It's just, this cemented Christopher Nolan as a household name. It also gave him the freedom to make any film he wants from now on, which is, it's a blessing and a curse, because he's not under as much pressure every single time by the studios, but at the same time, because he's not under as much pressure, he could make something that, he could go off the deep end. He hasn't done that yet, but we'll see. Anyway, now moving into his final couple films. 2010, Inception. Inception came out between Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises. And Inception was a big risk by the studio, because sci-fi films in general didn't make that much money towards the end of the decade. Since The Matrix, they hadn't been very popular. But Christopher Nolan got Leonardo DiCaprio, who is a big box office draw, and he was able to craft this film around this character. This character is the emotional core of the film. This is the character that you sympathize with. This is the character that you follow throughout. You're on his journey with him. And it deals with obsession, revenge for a dead wife. A lot of similar themes that are in a lot of Christopher Nolan's films. And I'm pretty sure everybody's seen this film, but if you haven't, check it out. It's really great. I've seen this multiple times now, and it is a great film with a great open, ambiguous ending that kind of The great thing about this film is the last shot makes you really reevaluate the entire film. You can take one of two sides with this film, really, and it makes you it gives you a completely different perspective on this main character. What his actual goal is in the film, the whole nature structure of the film, just by that last shot alone. Not taking, but leaving that aside, it's still a great story. It really is. There's a little bit too much exposition in this film. That is a common criticism, and I agree with that criticism. There is a lot of exposition in this film, but at the same time, you need that exposition because you're being introduced to this. This is a wholly original idea. Nobody's ever, this isn't based off of a book. This is one of Christopher Nolan's original films, like Memento. And this and Memento are actually his only two original films. And it's not that aren't based off of anything. So he has to give you a lot of that exposition, because otherwise you're going to be really confused, if not already confused, which a lot of people were. And, the inside of this is really cool. It's just got a couple discs. The Maze. I like this disc too. And I like how on the back they have a picture of Christopher Nolan with Leonardo DiCaprio, because Christopher Nolan is also the star of this film, because it was his first, it was his blending of, again, the blockbuster action with the art house independent movies like Memento. And he blended it, I think, very well. Also, I think that this is one of the best films, one of his better films also to look at, too. The visuals are really spectacular, especially some of the dream scenes. So this film, it deals a lot with dreams, interpretation of dreams, but at the same time, it is kind of a simple story. It's complex, but it's also simple in that he's just looking to avenge. He's looking to get home to his kids, and he's plagued by the guilt from his dead wife. There's a couple good performances in here. Leonardo DiCaprio should have gotten an Oscar nomination for Best Actor. I don't think he would have won, but he should have gotten a nomination. And Christopher Nolan, it's weird. This got nominated for Best Picture, Best Screenplay, but Christopher Nolan didn't get nominated for Best Director. I don't understand that. And The Dark Knight, which was the reason now that the Oscars have 10 Best Picture categories, because The Dark Knight was snubbed for Best Picture and Best Director. To this day, I'm sure the Academy will admit that omitting The Dark Knight from Best Picture was probably one of the biggest mistakes ever, because do I think it should have won? No. But it should have been nominated because Christopher Nolan took the superhero genre to a place it had never been to before with that film. And now he took sci-fi in a great direction with this as well. So, and you're still seeing the effects of this film on the industry, because there's a lot of imitators now. There's a lot of sci-fi films that have come out in the past couple years since 2010 because of this film. It opened up the door for a lot more filmmakers, essentially, which was a good thing. And now Christopher Nolan's last film that he did, which I don't have with me, was The Dark Knight Rises in 2012. It's the conclusion of his Batman trilogy. Made that very clear that this was the last film that they were setting out to tell their story and finish their story and Batman's story. So the Dark Knight, it didn't focus as much on Bruce Wayne and Batman. Kind of focused more on the two villains. But then this film, like Batman Begins, goes right back and focuses almost entirely on Bruce Wayne. Batman isn't in the film that much, though, which is kind of interesting. It was a Bruce Wayne film. It really was. And I loved that, because Bruce Wayne, except for in the first Tim Burton Batman movie, he's not in it a lot. It's mostly Batman. Bruce Wayne is just as interesting of a character as Batman. So, The Dark Knight Rises, a lot of people didn't like it. I really liked it. I don't think it's the best in the series. A lot of people say it's the worst in the series or the best in the series. I don't agree with either of those. I still think The Dark Knight, the second film, is the best in the trilogy, followed by Dark Knight Rises, and then Batman Begins. So I think it's the second best. They're all equally good, though. I mean, it's splitting hairs really ranking them, because I feel like they're all equally good. And The Dark Knight Rises, I didn't find Bane that interesting of a villain. Coming off of the Joker and Two-Face, who are two of the most iconic villains in Batman's rogues gallery, going to Bane, I don't think was the best choice. I see why Christopher Nolan did it, because he wanted somebody that could physically challenge Batman, somebody who could break him physically, which no other villain could do. because just in terms of brute strength. But aside from that, I don't find him that interesting of a villain. And Christopher Nolan did as much as he could with that. He took Bane someplace where the movies had never taken him, which I applaud him for that. But even it's not even Tom Hardy's fault. I just don't find that character really interesting. And Catwoman I do find really interesting. Anne Hathaway did a great job as Catwoman. Needed more screen time. And in general, the movie, though it's 2 hours and 45 minutes, could have been longer. I would have loved to have seen a 3 hour, 3 hour and 10-minute Batman movie because there was so much going on in that movie, introducing so many new characters like Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character as the cop, and the Catwoman and Bane, and also one of the other police officers in the film. You got them plus the regular characters coming back like Bruce Wayne, Lucius Fox, and Gary Oldman as Commissioner Gordon. There's so many characters in that film, and it is really a balancing act, and Christopher Nolan does a great job with balancing out these characters, but I would have loved to have seen more, I guess, just more time given, especially to Selina Kyle and Catwoman, Anne Hathaway's character. So now I'm going to go ahead and rank the films, which is tough to do, but I think I've got it down. And this obviously is just my opinion. It may change over time. But so I'll start at the bottom. Starting at the bottom, the lowest is Insomnia. A lot of people put this at the bottom of their list. I don't put it at the bottom because I didn't like it. I really do like that film. I want to stress that. I just feel like it was the only Christopher Nolan film that really wasn't his idea. The script was written by somebody else, and it was a remake, which kind of hurts it. But it's still a great film in its own right. I love it. I'm going to own it eventually. I just actually watched it a couple days ago again just because I wanted to refresh myself on it. And it is a great character study and also just powerhouse performances by Robin Williams and Al Pacino. Highly recommend it. But unfortunately, there's got to be a film at the bottom of every list, and that's my film that's at the bottom of this list. So now moving into... So that's number 7. He's made 8 films if you include following, but I'm not, so that's 7. Moving into number 6 is going to be Batman Begins. And Batman Begins is still a really great film, but it's not quite as good as the others. I still really do like it, though, and I definitely recommend it for anybody that wants to see a different portrayal of Batman, which it definitely was. And it's got a great atmosphere, like I mentioned before, really dark and gritty, but it was too small a scale for its own, almost too small. I wanted something a little bit bigger, which we did get in the next 2 Batman movies, which I really liked. So that's number 6. Number 5 is Inception, and Inception is definitely, one of Christopher Nolan's best original films. He's only made 2 of them, well, 3 if you include following. And but it's at the same time, it's got some great performances. It's a really great, engaging story. I love this film the first time I saw it in theaters, and I've seen it like 5 or 6 more times since. Really great. Check it out. I will say though, it is a little long. It could have been a little tighter, or edited a little tighter. But it's still a masterful job at having a lot of different levels going on in the storytelling, a lot of different dreams, balancing a lot of characters. That's my only complaint, though, with this film, is that a lot of the characters don't really get a lot of development. Maybe that was intentional. Maybe that was Christopher Nolan was saying something about the nature of these characters and how they're all really just, except for Leonardo DiCaprio, how they're all just being part of this essentially this dream sequence, and they all have a part to play because they're all filling this one aspect of the dream. Maybe they're not real at all. Depends on how you interpret the ending of this film. But still a great film. So number 5, Inception. Number 4 is going to be The Dark Knight Rises. And I don't have that film, like I said, but it's still, it's a really great Batman film. I really enjoyed it a lot. Once I own it, I can't wait to get it because I want to see it again. I've only seen it twice. I just saw it twice in the theaters. I don't own it yet on Blu-ray, but I'm going to get it. And then their ranking still might change because I haven't seen it as many times as his other movies. So that's number 4. And now we're getting into the top 3, which was very difficult for me to do because honestly the order of all 3 of these films could change. They're all great movies. But number 3 is going to have to be The Dark Knight. A lot of people put this as their favorite Christopher Nolan movie. I can't do that just because it is an amazing film, without a doubt. This film changed film forever. Like Joker even says, Batman's changed things forever. Well, Christopher Nolan changed things forever by making this movie because he blended the artistic independent film with the big budget action movie. It's amazing characters in this. It's a great story, a great crime drama. Took the superhero genre where it had never been before. Forced the Oscars to make 10 Best Pictures. This did a lot. This had a huge impact. And it's going to be regarded as his most popular film forever just because of that. But I have to put it at number 3. Still an amazing film. I'm sure everybody's seen this already. If you haven't, I don't know what you're doing. And then we're going to go ahead and go on to number 2. Number 2 is Memento. This was tough between 1 and 2. It took me forever to think of this, but number 2 is Memento. I saw this after the Batman movies. This wasn't my first introduction to Christopher Nolan, but now that I've seen this, I'm so glad I saw it because this is raw Christopher Nolan. Like Django Unchained is raw Tarantino. This is raw Nolan. This is Nolan, but in rated R. It's an amazing, great, compelling story that he creates. And just the structure of this film is so unique and genius. I've watched this so many times. I could watch this movie every day, and I would still be discovering new things and coming up with new theories, especially the end of the film, which actually takes place in the middle of the film in terms of the timeline. There's a huge revelation, changes the way you could look at the whole movie and how you look at all of these characters, and the main character and Joe Pantoliano's character. And it's just a great, psychological thriller. I love psychological thrillers. That's why I love this movie. And it's got some really great performances. More people need to see this because it says a lot about humanity, about why we live our lives, and it's just, it's just an amazing film. So if you've been keeping track, you know what number 1's going to be. And the number 1, my favorite Christopher Nolan movie, is The Prestige. The Prestige is a lot like Memento in that it's the non-linear storytelling, but it's got more characters than Memento, which is more ambitious than Memento because of that. And it's harder to root for a certain character. In Memento, you really can only root for one of 3 characters. This film, you can root for a lot of different characters. Christian Bale, Hugh Jackman, Scarlett Johansson, Michael Caine's character. There's a lot, and there's another Nikola Tesla. So it's a really great movie in that it's much more ambitious than Memento. It's got better cinematography than Memento. It's got better performances than Memento. And also, I just love magicians and deception and living lives of deceit. It's a great, great way to tell a story. Creates compelling characters that you want to watch, that you want to see what's going to happen. And even though I've seen this film so many times, I still am on the edge of my seat at the end of the film before there's the big reveal, because you can't believe it when it happens. I didn't see the twist coming. Maybe some people did. I did not see it coming. And there's actually 2 twists at the end of the film. The first one I didn't see coming at all. The second one I kind of did. But even so, those 2 twists at the end change the way you view this entire film, what characters you root for, why you root for them, and just it really captures what Nolan is getting at with all of his themes as an artist, which is, obsession, revenge, pining over a dead wife, with Hugh Jackman's character in this, deception, It's got everything. This has everything that a Christopher Nolan movie should have. And also, it is great because it's on a lower budget. Christopher Nolan has to be a lot, strict with what he does with the camera and with what he shows. That's why I like lower budget movies, because the director has to make compromises sometimes, but those compromises ultimately end up being really great in this film. And I really this is just a great story, and it's perfect length too. The movie's like 2 hours and 5 minutes, so it's not too long, not too short. It's and I also, like I said before, it's the best looking Christopher Nolan film without a doubt. So The Prestige is number one. Comment below on what you think of his films, your rank of them, why you would rank them that way, if you agree or disagree with my ranking. So just to, again, put it in the rankings in order is Insomnia's 7, Batman Begins is 6, Inception's 5, Dark Knight Rises is 4, 3 is Dark Knight, 2 is Memento, 1 is The Prestige. So go ahead and comment on those, on that ranking, and feel free to give your own. Next video I'm probably going to be doing is a ranking of either the Coen Brothers movies or the Tim Burton movies. I haven't really decided yet, but I'm just going to be doing rankings of my favorite directors, because I really feel like that's the best way and the only way to compare movies is within a director's own movies. I can't compare Memento with No Country for Old Men. To me, that makes no sense. But I can't compare Memento with The Dark Knight, because it's the same director, and it's got the same similar themes, and a director is trying to make a statement with his vision. So I feel like that's the best way that you can compare. So look out for my next video, which will be coming hopefully soon. Thanks.